Welcome to Within WordPress, the 2024 edition. I had to think about that because what is that? The first month of the year, the second month? Am I legally allowed to doubt the year still?
February. No, it's not. Where are we? Yes,
Feb-
February.
It's February.
God.
Welcome to Within WordPress, the podcast about WordPress and all its fine people inside that wonderful community. Today with us is a YouTube legend, at least in my eyes. Welcome, Jamie.
Hi, Rankus. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good.
Um, so I think it's almost impossible for people to not know who you are if they're on YouTube. Every now and then, and especially if they are curious about what we can do with that wonderful site editor.
Yeah.
But for those of the listeners that don't know you/YouTube, please introduce yourself.
So how long do you want? Do you want the short one? Actually, I'm going to give you a bit more. I'm going to give you a bit more. So I've worked all my life in publishing.
Mhm.
Prior to founding Portability, about 14 years ago, I ran a publishing company. So online publishing company. It was the MD. And that was I'm going back now because people don't know this context sometimes. So that was in the health sector, and we did online publishing, but we also bought some sort of traditional publishing companies,
Uh-huh.
paper. And then prior to that, I was CTO of a marketing services business, again in publishing. And then prior to that, I was an MD. We're going back of another business, but always in publishing.
And
But those businesses, I've been in a mixture of public businesses and also private businesses, and I've been at board level at technical and also commercial roles. So I have a long, my whole life has been
yeah,
in publishing in both sides of the technical and the commercial. I guess my USP would be I kind of sit in the middle of those two groups of people. I've been able to communicate from the technical people, understand enough about the technical stuff to be able to communicate it
yeah.
to the commercial stuff. But I'm fascinated by helping people grow online businesses, I guess, is what I'm sort of steeped in.
You
So,
said
but I love publishing. I love the history of markup languages. I love the freedom WordPress gives you.
yeah.
I'm kind of geeky around that sort of stuff, I guess. That's a brief potted history of my background. And then over the last 14 years, I've been running WordPress, and we are steeped in WordPress. Started off as a training business, then also added plugins onto that, which accounted for about 50% of the revenue. And then over the last 3 years, I've been going on to committing to YouTube, I guess you'd say, and
Yeah.
growing that. So I'm now about 21,000 subscribers. And so people in the WordPress community know me as a YouTuber, not as anything else, which is why I mentioned all that other stuff
Yeah, yeah.
before.
You said MD. What does MD stand for in your?
Managing director.
Okay. Yeah.
So running the thing. Yeah. So
Cool.
I ran yeah, I mean lots of stories about corporate life. So, part of me, I've been sort of running my own business for 14 years, but part of me does hanker back to those days of being in a part of my brain still misses that whole going to board meetings.
Mm. You missed that.
That whole thing, that part of me is really missing that at the moment, and having a big team to run. So yeah, I'm slightly drawn to that stuff,
Interesting.
but
Uh,
also repelled by it.
yeah. So I fit in the latter category mostly. I
Yeah.
have a large insurance company here in the Netherlands as a project manager. So
Okay.
small teams of project leads,
Yeah.
and putting them to work. The one thing I don't enjoy about that was the actual the let's have another meeting. Uh, that
Yeah.
sort the work was good, but so I'm not, so this is me assuming, but I assume you don't miss the meetings, but you miss the dynamic of working with other people. Is it?
I miss working with teams.
Yeah.
Do you know, part of me doesn't Part of me does miss the meetings a little bit, but they were dreadful, clearly, most of them, and a complete waste of,
Yeah.
because I drive 4 hours for these meetings and you've got 10 people in a room and it's just the worst environment to try and make decisions or get stuff done. So it's a terrible, but I do miss it. I do miss it. Um,
I get the interaction part. That I totally get.
but I think what it does give you, having that sort of living a lot of lives, especially within WordPress, and I'm trying to put a video together on this at the moment, is that we all tend to see our worlds in WordPress as kind of here. And a lot
Mhm.
of the, I think a lot of the toxicity and a lot of the conversations happen here. Whereas WordPress is obviously 43% of the web. And it's, in my new role as YouTuber, I get to talk to a lot of people about their projects. And it's just been, and the last week has been mind blowing. The incredible stuff, which I'm going to do a video about. So I'm not going to dive into it now, but the incredible stuff people are doing with WordPress, which I had absolutely no comprehension of.
Mm.
And it's just mind blowing some of the stuff people are doing with it. So
Like
you
the
learn all
types of
these
sites they
amazing
build with it.
stories, but we all kind of, I think we're guilty. I'm guilty of it. We all kind of sit in these corridors and we think, "Oh, this is WordPress. It's not doing what I want it to do." Whereas actually, if you start to get this wider perspective, I think it helps alleviate some of that. Oh, it just gives you a bit of awareness, but it's impossible to know WordPress is probably where I'm going with this. It's like this incredible beast of a platform.
I agree. I agree. Is it the diversity of the types of sites that they build with, or the types of problems that they're solving with it?
Yeah, well, a few things. One, like the types of the applications they're building with it,
Yeah.
incredible stuff. The types of sites they're building with it, their roles, I think, is a big one, and their personal interactions with the community, which some of those, but when you actually speak to people, like I was speaking to Justin Tadlock the other day, and some of the stuff he's got on his plate is, monumental in terms of the resources they've got and what their challenges are to communicate that stuff.
Yeah.
So if you sit in somebody's seat for half an hour, you get a completely different perspective on the WordPress world. So I think that's a really interesting place to be. So I have quite a wide, I mean, I think I have quite a wide perspective on it because I've trained 5,000 people on WordPress personally, face to face over the last 10 years.
Hmm.
Built hundreds of sites through I do a 1 day course thing, which is called WordPress Express, where we build a site to get with one client over in 1 day, so I've built lots of those. I've lectured at Regent's University. I've run classes for the Guardian Masterclass. I've now got a YouTube channel. I've interviewed Matt Mullenweg and Rand Fishkin and Matthias. And you kind of come out of all that stuff and you feel like you have a fairly wide perspective. But, in the last week, I've gone, "Oh, do I know nothing in terms of what people are doing?" And if I know nothing and I'm speaking to a lot of people, plus I have kind of a background in publishing and I know the commercial publishing side and also some of the technical stuff, then it's quite hard to, I think what I'm getting at is I understand why some of the toxicity in WordPress, because I think we see through our own lenses a lot of the time,
And then
because that's
project
our
that on
experience of it.
others.
Hey?
And then project that onto others.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I see that a lot as well. But the lenses thing is interesting. I think for one, historically, it's been a benefit. Mostly because I think the lens forces you to also focus on making whatever you're using the tool, in this case WordPress, service your goals,
Yeah.
the things you want to build. So it kind of helps to just like go really deep into, this is the only version of WordPress that I see. And for years, the biggest example for me has been the communities built around page builders. So
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
Elementor and Bricks of late is one that really stands out as well. Is that people are so deep down into that tunnel of this is the way
Yeah.
that I go like, well, it's your way.
Yeah.
It's not the way.
Yeah, and I think I'm generalizing here, but I think a lot of the folks in the bricks community are probably agencies. Well, they are generalizing, but probably agencies, fairly small agencies that have this is, and it fits beautifully into that workflow, which is fantastic. It's not fantastic though, then to say this is, you know, this is like that wouldn't be the workflow that like the guys at Human Made would want to use because they're doing
No.
enterprise projects. So it's completely wrong for that scenario. So I think that's where a wider perspective helps because then you can say actually it's all right for this use case, but actually if we want to do this, then it's probably not the right tool.
Yeah.
And that perspective helps to relieve some of the toxicity around that stuff, I think.
I tend to agree. So my background is I've worked at a large insurance company, sort of the glue between HR and IT,
Yeah.
and vice versa. And from there, so that's an enterprise environment. We worked with stuff like PeopleSoft and Oracle, and humongously expensive
Yeah.
projects and software
Yeah.
things. I then and April 1st this year, it'll be 20 years ago. Then dived into the world of I need a website. Let me build one. First one I actually had somebody else build for me. I wanted to make a small change. I almost had to pay the exact same money again. I was like, okay, let me figure it out myself because I used to build sites in '96 as well. So surely it's not more complicated. In some way it wasn't. In some way it wasn't. But the result is me understanding the the enterprise part of how you deal with projects. Because as soon as I published mine, I had a buddy of mine go like, "That's nice. I like that. Can you build me one?" Like,
Yeah.
that was not my intent, but sure, I can. So what does it cost? I'm like, great question. I have no idea. So I just did a small fee. But he had a lot of friends who said the same thing. So I went, okay, I guess I'm doing this because I like doing it. Weird. But the one thing that always was different for me, certainly at the time, and this we're talking 2005 to 2007 range,
Okay. Yeah.
is that I understood the enterprise part of it, the
Yeah. Yeah.
project management part of it, the yes, I'm doing this, but that there's a communication level with the client. There's not me forcing stuff upon them because I've been on the other end, right?
Yeah.
I didn't like
Yeah.
that. So we had at one time we needed an HR solution anew. It was built. We had something really antiquated built on AS400. For those who don't know what that is, that means if you know what it is, you're old. Um, and that needed to be replaced. So we were looking at PeopleSoft, we were looking at Oracle, and we were looking at what's the other ERP? I forgot. But the stuff that the consultants came with and tried to shove down our throat, I was like, that's weird. We're asking you to provide us with a quote, and yes, you need to do your due diligence and figure this out, but you're supposed to service our needs and not shove it down our throat.
Yeah.
So that whole knowledge I took to my clients, like, okay, let me just hear what you actually want to do instead of me forcing a solution upon you. And I kind of feel so well, I know I had an edge in that for quite a few years, but I kind of feel like we're sort of back in that situation where now people have very strong opinions about the tools within WordPress they're using. Page builders, again, that clients don't have an idea of the choices that they're making because their
Yeah.
agency is making. And I know it's, you pay them to do those, but I would say you want to pay for them to make the smartest decision for you specifically.
Yeah.
Not this, I need this tool. This is the only thing I work with.
Yeah. I mean, my business has been a training business for 14 years. And so I would say the majority of people coming, well, there's two sorts of people. One they want to learn how to build new sites with WordPress, but then there's another type which they have a website, but they're stuck and they want to be able to update it properly. But it's been built in such a way it's absolutely impossible for them to do that. And that's purely because the person that's built it for them hasn't asked one question, which is, do you ever want to edit your website in the future?
Yeah.
That question just doesn't get asked. And it's like, for me, it's the fundamental question that you're responsible. If you're building a site for somebody, you should ask them, do you want to edit this site in the future? Do you want to edit the design? Do you want to edit the content?
Yeah.
And
Or
if you don't ask that question, then, you know, and
or here,
that's what I see a lot of people in that situation. It's really bad for WordPress because these people are coming away with this. This is WordPress. This is their experience of WordPress.
exactly.
And I know
Exactly.
there are people out there that think that they should never let their clients loose on the content. And it's like, well, ask them, do they, is that a requirement of the business? I've just done a recreation of the NASA website.
Yep.
They
So
got 400, they got 436 users. And it's fine to say, we're going to use this tool and we're going to lock it down and we're never going to give our clients access. But what if you're a NASA? That scenario is completely hopeless because they got 436 people that need access to update content. Or what if you're a publishing company and you've got editors and journalists?
yeah.
It's like, so for me, that's and there's been a myriad of ways I've sort of bad practice I've seen the way, and some of this is malevolent, right? I think people tie down sites. I've certainly seen this. I'm not saying everyone does this, but I've certainly seen people tie down sites because they want to extract more money from
Yeah.
the
I
customer.
I see this a lot.
Yeah, do you? Okay, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So the
yeah,
the vendor lock-in that they create
yeah,
doesn't only happen in, for instance, a page builder, but it also happens in what they make available for the client. I see it way more often now than I did in the beginning.
yeah. I mean, I've seen hundreds of these over the years, and there's some really, smart ways that people do this.
Yep.
Uh, like, and they'll sell it as a benefit. But again, they haven't asked the question, do you want to edit your content or do you want to change change the design? So, custom themes is a really good way to do it. So,
Mhm.
and then I've seen ACF misused a lot in the way people build out sites for customers when they didn't need to. I mean, frankly,
Understatement.
over
Understatement.
engineering with ACF is a really good way to extract money
Yeah.
from customers, but they'll do it in the guise of, from my experience, and I'm only talking about customer stories that people have told me, it's been sold in as if you use a like a template or a theme that isn't bespoke, your site will look like everybody else's. So you need a bespoke theme customized by us. And and, and other ways that they kind of lock this stuff down. And so they'll sell it as a benefit, but actually what they're doing is just extorting money from customers in the
Yeah.
long run. And so people again are left with a bad experience of WordPress. So I'm quite on a mission not to show people there's a better way in terms
Yeah.
of the end users.
Yeah. I was gonna ask because your channel is mostly about what you can do with the block editor and the site editor,
Yeah.
uh, products from Project Gutenberg.
Yep.
Um, by now, I know this is a conscious decision, but how much of a conscious decision was it when you started really buckling down on the video content? Like, is the educator in you saying, "Okay, obviously there's a gap here"?
Yeah, no, it wasn't that. I mean, it wasn't that conscious, I don't think. I think I was just getting irritated by a lot of there's so much misinformation about WordPress.
Hmm.
Um, it's like if you take up golf, and so for me, as somebody that likes learning, loves learning. I used to be a tennis coach as well, by the way. I don't know if people know that. So I used to be a tennis coach, and
I
that
don't think
funded
they
my
did.
college education. So um, that was my first sort of experience of teaching people. But with tennis, you see it a lot. So if you see beginners, and I could teach somebody to improve their tennis in like 10 minutes. But you go around and you see coaches and they're just teaching it the wrong way. If anyone wants to know what those tips are, email me. But and what common with golf as well, what commonly people will do, they won't learn the basics. They'll go off and buy all the most expensive rackets and all the most expensive. I'm coming to a metaphor here. The most
Yeah, yeah.
expensive, yeah. Um, and you see a lot with WordPress. So beginners will go straight onto a page builder.
Yeah.
They'll go straight to, and I'm not saying page builders are necessarily wrong, but unless you know the basics of WordPress, unless you know the core stuff, like this, I was getting frustrated that people were doing a lot of stuff or slandering Gutenberg when actually you could do what they were saying you couldn't do. It was perfectly possible to do a lot of the stuff people were saying you couldn't do. So I had that philosophy. Well, I'll just show people some, what is possible with Gutenberg rather than saying, shouting at people saying you're wrong, you can definitely do this in Gutenberg. I just decided to show more videos just to show them you could do stuff in Gutenberg. That was an odd metaphor, but hopefully you get my point. I think the point is
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
still see loads of misinformation now where people just don't understand what's possible in core. So my advice would be, just spend 2 hours of your life learning what's possible with core WordPress, core Gutenberg. And then if you realize at that point you can't do what you want to, then, then it's time to start to look for potentially, other solutions for you. But unless you know this stuff, how can you make those decisions? And obviously sticking to core as closely as possible has so many advantages for sites.
Yep.
So that's kind of, I think that was the instinct I had in terms of creating the content. And I think that's the mission now, really.
So you keep referring it to Gutenberg, but I'm going to stick to the official stuff here.
Well, yeah, well, I don't want to, again, we can talk about that, but it's it's called Gutenberg for a reason, somebody famous once said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but the site editor and the block editor,
Yeah.
what you're saying is learn those two tools first before you dive into okay, this is not, I can't make it happen in this, and then
Yeah.
it starts making sense to maybe look at page builders. So so my question here is, where do you stand in there's a bunch of plugins that seriously enhance whatever you can do with the various blocks.
Yeah.
Cadence is a wonderful example.
Yeah.
Where do you stand on that? Is that
The same. So learn core. So Cadence is great, but unless you know what's possible with the core stuff, why are you installing extra plugins? So, there's so much honestly, there's so much misunderstanding I see around what's possible with just basic core blocks of what you can build out perfectly good sites with. And I see a lot of, for example, and I love Cadence, and I think, I've used Cadence on projects, but if you install, and the same with Astra, if you install their starter sites, or you go and look at their starter sites, I could pretty much build all those starter sites. This is a bold claim. I could build most of those starter sites with core blocks, right?
I think.
I think a lot of them,
Yeah.
yeah, but they're using their blocks to build them all. And for lots of people, the core blocks will be fine. For some people, they won't be. But and it doesn't take long to learn the core blocks or what's possible with them.
No, I think they're pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Of the examples, how many examples site have you built on the channel now? Like where you recreate a.
Yeah, I think about 14 at last count, something like that.
Okay,
So
so
like
for
Harry Styles, Tom Cruise, Taylor Swift, NASA, TechCrunch, Nike, and
WordPress.org.
WordPress.org, which was fun.
Yeah.
Um,
So how many of all
yeah,
those, let's call them 15, did you for all just use core blocks?
no, for actually I did Charity Water with the guys at Cadence sponsored that one, so I did use some extra blocks for that one,
Okay.
and Give WP, which was cool. Um, and then the Nike one I used. There were a few blocks in there I couldn't do. I think that was a Spectre sponsored video, but I think that was like a carousel block
Yeah.
potentially. maybe a couple of other blocks, but the rest have been core. Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
Because I don't specifically remember you disclosing what is part of it of your tool set as you're building them. I think you just
Yeah, I normally do. Yeah, I mean, mostly they're, the challenge is really to try and do them with core blocks and no CSS.
yeah.
That's the sort of challenge I set. And obviously that's not always possible. But it's interesting to see how far you can get with that, right?
What's been the one that yielded the most responses and positive or negative?
Do you know, it's
Don't
interesting,
don't
isn't
tell
it?
me the Taylor
Because
Swift one. Don't tell me.
there's a mixture of responses to these. Um, the agencies and pros kind of don't like them because they're like, I think they feel like I'm sort of belittling the craft to a certain extent, which isn't the intention at all. The sort of DIYers and beginners absolutely love them because they're inspired by
Yeah.
seeing what's possible. And I view these as a bit like they're not intended as this is a step-by-step video tutorial that you're going to get your pen out and write down stuff, right? It's like it shows you what's possible. It's a bit like I've compared it before to it's a bit like people watching food shows, which are huge in England. I don't know if they are where you are, but chefs are rock
I
stars
don't
here.
watch TV, so I wouldn't know.
Okay, well they're huge here. So, but when you and you know, I'll watch a lot of these, and somebody's making a recipe, and I'm loving it, I'm enjoying it, but I'll never make that. I'll never make that recipe, but I see what's possible,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
so it inspires me to some degree to think, well, I could probably do that, and I think they're a
Probably
bit like that.
use a little bit more garlic in the next dish I make.
But there are. I try and pick sites that do have um, learning points in them as well. That's what, like the NASA one, it had some really cool stuff with the query loop block,
Hmm.
um, like some cool grids that I built with the query loop block and the cover block essentially. And so there's some really good learning in there as well.
What are the things that stand out most then? Because if you get mixed,
I wouldn't say mix. I mean, mostly people love them, to be honest. It's just
oh, okay.
it's the occasional person that snipes, but I would say that's 1%.
Oh, okay, okay. So
Yeah, it's not.
that's a good addendum because I kind of almost guessed like a third is whining and two-thirds is happy or whatever.
Yeah, no, it's universally. I mean, most of the videos on my channel get really nice um, feedback and comments. I hardly ever get hardly any negative stuff at all, which is fantastic. When I'm posting my own channel, it's different if I post on Twitter.
Is it? What's the
A
difference
little
there?
bit, yeah. But if I always get one person who dislikes all my videos within about 10 seconds of me publishing them.
Really?
Yeah.
Jeez, how petty.
So they're following me and just literally with the intention of hitting that thumbs down button.
So I guess you didn't mind YouTube sort of making that less prominent in
Yeah, honestly, that's really, I mean, we see it as you know, as creators, but not having it public is fantastic. And they did it for mental health reasons, which is,
yeah,
you know,
and I
it's
get it.
great. And it definitely helps.
Yeah. That's I mean, it's incredibly petty, but it's also hilarious. Like apparently some person's goal in life is to download
Yeah.
wherever they can.
Yeah, it's extraordinary. And you got to think they're probably not having a good time.
No.
They're probably not okay. So, you know, you can't be too harsh on them. Things can't be going too well if that's their part of their daily routine.
Oh Lord. That's I can't but see the hilarity of it. Like, what is going on in your head? That is your primary thing to do.
Yeah.
But that's good because so what I see a lot is I mean I'm one of the people that subscribe to your channel. I
Thank you.
quite a few of your videos just for like how does he present. Um,
You know, it's interesting. I released a video on Envato yesterday. They commissioned me to make the NASA video, so it went on
yeah,
their channel, and they edited it and crikey, it's good. Like the first 30 seconds are a step above, and just in terms of video editing and production, the stuff that I've first, because it's just time, it's just me doing this editing at
Yeah.
the moment. But it did make me realize, wouldn't it be great one day to have a video editing team that I can just create the content, throw it to them. Yeah, they kind of the hook at the start and the video production, and it's like energized. It's fantastic. So yeah, it's kind
So
of
so you're going to bring that back to your own channel in some way?
it. I'd love to. Yeah, it's made me think I need to raise the bar. I mean, I'm getting better at structuring my videos, and I'm writing one today in terms of how you structure a video. So you hook it at the start, and then you create loops in the video to create interest that draw people back into
Yeah.
further part. So I'm creating like I've actually got a blueprint, which I'll share with you if you like, actually, which is like, this is the hook, this is the setup, this is the first loop, this is the point, and da 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 da. Da. So I'm starting to introduce more formality, kind of structure in the videos in YouTube, so you
Yeah.
get better retention rates.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm fascinated by that whole bit in YouTube. I'm not just fascinated by the WordPress bit, the YouTube bit. Getting better at the video making is a driving obsession of mine at the moment.
So, what I was going with is that me
Yeah, sorry.
watching, no, no worries, me watching you explain stuff, and but also like how do you approach solving that visual problem? Like this is the website. How do I recreate that? That's essentially what yeah, I think that drew me in the most. The um, I recently revisited the very first question I ever asked somebody about WordPress was me shooting an email to Brian Gardner in 2006,
Wow, that's
where
great.
I was like, I don't know how to actually solve this. I sent the email to Brian,
Yeah.
whatever it was, and he responded and he said, "Oh, that's just that." And I go like, "Okay, that was simple." But seeing somebody else build stuff that uh, was not obvious before, and then it is obvious. I like that concept, and I really enjoy your videos doing exactly that. So the
Yeah.
educational part of it, sure, there may be stuff from the production side of things that you can improve, but I just wanted to give you a compliment on the way that you're presenting the information, because I think you're I mean, you made it clear you're sharing a lot of positive comments on Twitter as well on people commenting
Yeah.
on your videos. But for those listening and never having seen any of Jamie's videos, it's the type of follow along is just absolutely wonderful. And I've done this. I've asked my wife to like, can you follow what's happening here? Because this is not what you do. She writes. She's wonderful at writing content, and she obviously works with WordPress a lot, but
Yeah.
it's the writing that she specializes in. And she goes like, "Yeah, I can actually follow this. This makes sense." So
Well, that's great. I think part of that is traipsed around the country for 10 years, teaching people face to face and
I'm
understanding
I'm sure
there's
that
nothing, there's nothing quite, getting up at 4 o'clock and getting a train to London every week. Um, there's nothing quite like seeing people actually in front of computers trying to use WordPress. So you
yeah.
kind of get a real respect for how beginners struggle with interfaces and struggle with aspects of WordPress. And there's nothing quite like having that hands-on experience to make you realize face to face, make you realize hopefully how to explain things in a coherent way.
Yeah.
So
Well,
there's a lot of hard miles and roads traveled.
this is me just saying it shows, but uh,
Thank you.
the the biggest question I have actually in terms of because you've positioned yourself as the educator for all blocks. Let's just uh, give you a title there. Um, what is the most frustrating thing yet that is not yet on the radar of being solved within next version is WordPress 6.5 or 6.6 or
Yeah. So I'm actually doing a video on this with Brian Cords. Do you know Brian?
yep.
So we're compiling a list. I've tweeted it out and people have added to it. So, and what we're going to do is we're going to go through our top things that we think need to be fixed in the block editor. And I'm using your terms now in Gutenberg to kind of take it to the next level. And I'm gonna get to your answer in a minute, okay, Ramkus, don't worry. But it's going to be based on two things. It's going to be based on the block editor and the site editor, and then within those, it's going to be based on two things, which is UI and functionality. Okay,
Yep.
so very very high level, very simple. And then we're going to go. We're both going to pitch what we think needs to be improved and how, and then we're going to score them out of 10 in terms of importance to actually take it to the next level. This is based on, but I'm going to preface it with the context is if you look at the stats for current usage of block themes, if we look at the site editor, it's still not growing very quickly at all. Okay, which for me is a huge issue. The biggest issue I think WordPress faces. I don't think it's acknowledged properly. Because there's a huge amount of effort going into block themes in the site editor at the moment. If you look at just the amount of resource that's going into it, the amount of passion and love.
Yep.
But if you look at actually the non-core block themes on WordPress .repo, and we're tracking me and can't remember his name. Sorry, Heinrich are tracking this. So he's built a website where you can actually see how many block themes are being used. The growth is really still very low. And if you look at some of the best block themes out there, like Ollie and Spectra One, and Spectra One has the team behind Brainstorm Force behind it. It's just not growing. I looked yesterday, it's getting about 127 downloads a day, which if you compare that to like Cadence,
Yeah.
which is like I think Astra is about 7,000 or something like that. So there is an issue at the moment in terms of adoption for block themes. And the issue is if that doesn't improve, then the ecosystem that builds on top of those things doesn't start to grow as well. So because the pro ecosystem won't grow because the market isn't there for those pro plugins.
So could it be different? Could it be that the realization of full design control that you have with a block theme, and obviously the more mature the block theme is, the better. So in my mind, Spectre is a good example.
Yeah.
But most certainly Ollie, most certainly Frost.
Yeah.
Could it be that because they are so mature, that you don't really need that much variety in block themes because you have control over background colors. You can add images. You can do this. You can do that. There's so much stuff that you can do with just a base template.
That's certainly true. But if you look at the overall usage of block themes compared to classic themes, it's about 2% at the moment. Now, it was going to be low because they're new.
Yeah.
We're not seeing the growth in it.
Themes activated.
Sorry?
You mean the amount of themes activated on live WordPress sites?
Yeah.
2% of those have block themes active.
This is according to this is only the WordPress.org repo stats.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's about, I think it was when I looked, it was about 1 or 2%, tiny. And
So
the growth is tiny in these themes. So they're just, and my contention is, and this is where we're going to focus the video. My contention is the whole problem around it. The big challenge at the moment with block themes is usability. They're really hard to use compared to a classic theme.
Yeah.
Out of the box, a block theme is far more powerful than a classic theme.
Yep.
Just as, they just are. So every block theme starts with this incredible amount of power, like a theme customizer. You can customize WooCommerce now. You can, it's just, there's so much you can do with it. But unless I can give it to a beginner and they can start using it and understanding it very quickly, my contention is we're not going to see the adoption that we want. And we want to see the adoption because block themes level up WordPress for everyone. They give everyone this huge power.
Yeah.
Now I've run training courses for 10 years for beginners, and I know I can give a beginner like Blocksy and teach them for 10 minutes, and they can customize it, change the design, change the fonts, change the page layouts, do a lot, or cadence. I run a 3-hour course now called Master Block Themes. And at the end of that course, people are still struggling to use block themes. That's the level of challenge I think we've got.
Interesting.
And I would, I would say to the development team, go and give a block theme to a beginner and see what happens.
I've seen what it happens because my son needed a website, and I was like, "Well, I can build it for you, but here's an interesting idea. Why don't you learn how to build it?"
Okay, how'd it go?
And well, not too great
Yeah,
because certain controls are just hidden. You don't know them. Like the whole concept of clicking on a block that opens a sidebar that has a sidebar within the sidebar,
yeah,
design section. Then there's important stuff in the advanced sections. Why? So he couldn't get to the point that he said, I understand what I'm doing. He got to the point where, okay, this is how inserting a block works. But if, for instance, you have no concept of what columns and rows mean,
yeah, or groups,
or groups, then
or stacking, or flex, or templates, or template parts, or patterns. There's all
yeah,
these concepts which are I understand them because I'm doing this every day and I love it. I love the creative challenge of it, but I can't give it to a beginner, or a lot of
no,
people
it's
would
still a
struggle with
challenge.
it.
So and actually his biggest feedback was, "What's up with the navigation?"
Well, that actually I was going to come to that point. That is the most. There was a if there was one thing I would say that needs fixing, it's the whole. There are now 4 places to edit the navigation block.
Yeah, yeah, and none of them come close to the old experience.
No.
Um, yeah,
So
so
there are some. So there are some. I would say everyone. I would say everyone in the development team or who works on Gutenberg should be forced to run a training course,
yeah,
and should be forced to go and build 10 websites with it.
I think that'd be a good start.
And also, I would say let's hire a company to do some user testing
Yeah.
because I think it's a big issue. I love block themes and I want to see them. I want to see everyone using them because, as I said, they level up WordPress. They level up the things you can do with WordPress. But unless they become, I think, I mean, my view is they need to become as if they are going to disrupt, because for them to succeed, they have to disrupt the classic theme market.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
have to. So unless they become as easy to use as a classic theme, that for me is, if I was running it, that's the challenge I would set the team. Within a year, I want this experience to be as easy to use as a classic theme. Off you go. See you in
So
a year.
is an onboarding wizard? Is that where the magic should happen?
I think it's way bigger than that, honestly.
Yeah, I would guess as well. But is that where the
Yeah,
answer?
I mean that would certainly help because actually there is an argument to say um, you don't have to get into if you're happy with the design, you don't have to get into editing templates. You only have to edit templates if you want to change the default design of the theme. So a beginner might not want to do that. So an onboarding wizard would certainly get them. Like the stuff Mike did with Ollie was fantastic.
Yep.
That would definitely be fantastic to put into core, something like that. Um, but I do think there is, I personally think there was an opportunity to almost create a layer on top for beginners, a layer on top of, and this could be filled by a commercial product potentially, but a sort of abstracted layer on top of the site editor, which almost is a bit like the customizer experience, where a beginner can literally go in and say, I want to change this template to this template design without having to go in and shift group blocks and understand, flex and row blocks and stacking.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, they're interesting words if you have absolutely zero concept of what it actually means.
and patterns and sync patterns, and there's a level of complexity which is
Pattern override,
fantastic. And what's right?
sync pattern overrides, like
Sync pattern overrides, partially sync patterns.
yeah.
I understand all this stuff because I'm doing it every day and I'm obsessed by it. But I think that's the, you know, as simple terms, that's the challenge, to make them as simple to use as a classic theme.
Yeah. Well,
And if not,
I would argue that classic themes were never that simple to use, but there are a few components in that that just make more sense. The navigation for me, the sidebars, and the widgets, that still works better for me
yeah,
in
yeah, I see what you're saying.
pop up.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. I'm a big fan of a fully abstracted navigation experience,
Yeah. Yeah.
building menus in an abstracted way. And then we have some of that. So we have now, we have four ways, as I say, to build a menu, none of which, none of which quite do what you want. Some of them, there's
It
really
is
one weird one now, which I sometimes get to. I don't know how I get there. It's a bit like going down a labyrinth. Um,
it is the number one question I get from clients, and I have
is
some
it?
really tech savvy clients. Like
Yeah.
they can.
What are the issues they're having with it? Is it just the UI or is it actual functionality?
I think a little bit of both, because the UI is so weird and small in places that it's difficult for them to fully feel flexible in just adding something wherever they want. You have to click around quite a few times to actually have that extra menu item added.
Yeah.
And then to then choose between the different things. What if you have a site that has a couple of hundred pages and some of the page titles are similar? You just can't find the one you need. So you then need to revert back to a custom link.
Yeah.
And they go, just, can you just please fix it? And I'm fine. Just tell me which one you need to add, and I'll make it happen for you. But that is the number one. That is by far the number one. And I've been building
Yeah.
site editor themes from day one. So that's probably, what is it, 18 months ago now?
Yeah.
I've built, I would say, around probably 30, 35 of them.
Okay.
I've had a few clients where they didn't necessarily ask me to do it for them, but I've converted classic themes over to full site editing themes where it makes sense, just to give myself the experience. Like, I didn't charge them for it.
Yeah.
And visually, it's the same thing for them. But that is the number one question. Like, please help me with this menu.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's the block that has the biggest stress at the
Yeah.
moment.
What's the number two for you?
Um,
You don't need to explain the whole video, like all the things, but I'm curious.
number
Navigation,
two
right?
block. Um,
Or
I think the biggest confusion I see um, from customers is what the heck is a group block? Because a lot of these themes, and I understand what group blocks are for, but just conceptually what their intention is and what they're doing. Like if you install the 2024 theme, which I absolutely love,
yeah.
and you start to edit it, like you edit the header, I think we've got two row blocks in a group block. And so already I might be wrong on that, but I think we've got two row blocks in the header, maybe a group block as well. But a row is a group block.
Yeah.
Um, but immediately we're in. You give that to me, you give that to a normal person, and they're going, well, how do I select the navigation?
Yeah.
So we have this amazing power because it's built with blocks, but we have this amazing complexity because it's made with blocks. And the challenge is, how do you simplify that experience? And I don't think twiddling around, making little UI changes
No.
is going to cut it. I think
No, this
there's
needs
a
to be
there's a
rebuilt.
bigger question to be asked around what the end goal is,
Yeah.
and can we allow ourselves to put so much energy into so much resource into building this amazing thing and still be at this level of adoption this time next year? That'd be the biggest question I would ask the team.
Yeah. So the navigation thing is, I think, is actually critical in this. I don't know
Yeah.
how long it's been since you've seen my site, but I actually have a site logo name. Then I have the menu in the middle, and then I have a menu
Okay.
to the right, and then I also have a hidden menu, which is only visible in mobile.
Okay. Different menu items.
Yeah. So the
Yeah.
amount of work that I had to put in, because that's the way I wanted to have it set up,
Yeah.
the work that I had to put in, understanding full well how it works,
Yeah.
is beyond.
And that's literally a 2 minute job in Bloxy or Cadence or Astra.
Possibly, yeah.
Oh, it is. I mean, they got a, you build your menu, you select which menu you want that to be allocated to. Then you go into their lovely little drag and drop header builder in the customizer,
Oh yeah, yeah,
drag your menu across, and you're off to the races.
yeah. So that's stuff that
That's
needs.
the challenge right there, right? I think that
So
experience.
speaking of challenges, you in your introduction you mentioned that you're also running a plugin business.
Yep.
How has your concept of plugins changed as you're deep diving into what uh, what a block theme is and what you can do with that?
Well,
Are,
it's informed it a bit actually because our plugins are mostly block-based plugins,
Mhm.
and we built and support for block themes. I think it's longer than 18 months ago. Yeah, much longer. So whenever it was first muted, but again, we haven't seen compared to how people are using our plugins with classic themes. We haven't seen the take up with those that I predicted because we haven't seen the massive adoption of block themes yet, which goes back to my point of unless there is more adoption, we won't see a premium ecosystem developing around block themes that add extra cool and whizzy stuff to them, which will harm the overall project because those add value to it and spread the word.
so we're then back to the page builders that in that context do make sense because they're
Well,
solving the problem, but they're overtaking it entirely.
they're not solving the problem. They're replicating what it can do in many cases in a well, I wouldn't say in an easier way. Like I would say using in terms of UI, uh, using a block theme has a learning curve, using bricks has a learning curve.
Sure.
The opportunity for block themes is to have a much lower learning curve because it's inherent in WordPress, and obviously it's free, than a page builder
Yeah.
because it's called WordPress. That's the huge goal and opportunity for WordPress at the moment.
Um, Question, because which I don't know the answer to this. Of all the page builders out there, if you were to switch from the page builder solution to a block theme, how many of the page builders out there keep at least the content in place?
Bricks does. Although I'm going to test this properly, but Bricks does to a certain degree. I think it dumps it into some blocks,
Okay.
but I haven't checked the formatting. Um, Divi's going to apparently with version 5. At the moment, it's just a pile of shortcodes. Um, I think they're all pretty much dumped shortcodes. WP Bakery
Yep.
shortcode. So just a page of gibberish, basically. You lose everything.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not sure about Beaver Builders. You know about Beaver Builder? What happens with that one?
It's been a few years since I've actively used them. What it does, it opens a second editor, and that's where you do your thing. So I would imagine that's not I don't
Yeah,
think.
so Divi's professing that it's going to support. I mean, they've been a bit vague about it, to be honest. Um, it's going to support Gutenberg more in line with Gutenberg, but I'm
Hmm.
not sure to what degree that. I'm not sure quite what that means. Um, so yeah, I think Bricks is yet to be tested, but I think Bricks has the least friction for moving.
I'm asking because Matt Mullenweg at the State of the Word in
Yeah,
Madrid this year um, put a high focus on data portability.
yeah,
Obviously, from outside going into WordPress as one of the things to fix, but also within WordPress itself. I was kind of wondering how some of the popular solutions out there are actually understanding what this means for their products. So the vendor lock-in, whether that's on the agency level or whether that's on the page builder level,
Yeah.
are we finally going to see the end of that?
No.
No.
Because I think
That's a cheerful answer right there.
because there's
Great idea,
vested
Matt.
in
Not going to happen.
we might well and I know there's been solutions to go from I think Divi to Gutenberg, I think I saw. But we can have the technical solution, but it's there's other ways that vendors lock people in
Yeah,
over and above the
I guess the
technology,
agency
right?
level is difficult to solve, but I think I'm more curious about interoperability between
Yeah. No,
their.
I mean I think that'd be an amazing thing and a great thing for WordPress. So I was really pleased to see that focus on it. But I do think vendors lock people in many other ways, like creating lots of misinformation on the internet,
Yep.
which is huge. I'm going to do a video on that. And a lot of that is purposefully confusing
How
people and using
how long
terminology that's just wrong.
how long is your list of videos that you have
T-
decided you're going to make?
250. Seriously.
I'm glad I asked.
But
How
I've got
how long is the list of videos you're actively working on?
um only about five. But
Oh,
that's like writing ideas. So yeah,
yeah.
but they kind of bubble up. They bubble up. So I'll have a long list. I'll just have an idea, put them in the spreadsheet. I'm very basic workflow.
I have
If it
about
gets me
75.
excited. Hey,
I have about 75.
yeah, it's
Not
amazing
that
how
I'm
it grows,
working,
right?
but defined as this video needs to happen. I have three in the works.
Yeah.
But those are different numbers, Jamie. So 250 is decided. How long is the list of undecided? Because if we're going
No,
down,
200, no, 250s, I guess, really ideas I'm excited about.
yeah, okay.
So I
So
want to make. And they won't all get made, obviously, because that's a lot
one
of
out of
videos.
20 doesn't make it.
I don't know. I haven't studied the stats. I mean, basically, it's what I'm excited about, really, and what makes sense at that time and what's useful. And then I have a series of videos. So I like the idea of having like series of videos, repeatable things that you don't necessarily, the formats are kind of set.
Yep.
So the website recreations are a series.
Hmm.
Don't have to, that's just ongoing. And then I'm doing a new series with my daughters, Can a Complete Beginner Build, dot, dot, dot.
How's that going?
Cool. They just did, it's cool actually. They just did Cadence AI. Can you
Yeah.
build a website? Can a complete beginner build a website with Cadence AI in 10 minutes? So they've just recorded that this week. We're just editing that one at the moment. So that'll be a series, and those are sponsored. So companies are paying to be for a brutally honest look at how beginners
Yeah.
use their products,
Cool.
which is helping fund their university education because they're both at uni now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and then I'm talking to Matt Cromwell. I shouldn't say this, but I'm talking to Matt Cromwell about maybe doing a series of videos, which is he's doing a new blog series called Shiny New Plugins, where we like look at the new plugins coming in, and I used to watch this show in the 80s on in TV where they'd look at the latest music releases and review them. So I'd like a format like that.
Yeah.
So I like this idea of creating like these series that you can repeat. I like the idea of format so people know what they're getting when they
Yeah.
sort of tune in.
I think that's probably smart.
And yeah, so I've got a few other ones. I've got this really cool idea, which I spoke to Justin Tadlock about. This is the most exciting idea, which I'll get you on as well if you're up for it. But like it's going to be called WordPress World Series.
Yeah.
So it's basically an hour-long show live, and it's basically two people challenge against each other. So think like wrestling posters, all that sort of stuff. And I show them a design, and then they get half an hour each
Who can
to
build it the fastest and the best?
who can build it the best. So I'm still working through the format, but it'll have to be possible in Gutenberg in the block editor. And then we do like, this is the challenge. And then you do it for 15 minutes, you stop. And then Justin does it for 15 minutes, he stops. And then we have half time, and then we reverse it. And then at the end we review. So it's learning, but also because people approach these things in very different ways. So that's quite interesting.
Yeah.
And then at the end we get a winner, right?
I
So WordPress World Series, I think that format.
Well, if the world means actually the world, then I might be interested.
It definitely means the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's another fun format I want to get going. So there's lots of fun ideas coming along.
So if you weren't allowed, um, and I'm gonna use this as the last question
Yeah.
because we're running up on the hour. If you weren't allowed to talk about blocks or Project Gutenberg in any way, shape, or form on your channel, what would you then focus on?
Does it have to be WordPress?
Yes,
Oh, that's limiting.
I know.
Um,
There's so much more though.
anything else? I would what would I talk about? That's a great question. I would probably talk about, well, I don't know. I'd have to think about, if I just think about YouTube, right? I'd have to think about what makes this interesting must-see content.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people, I've tried to view the stuff I create on WordPress on YouTube is like I watch a lot of YouTube. I watch more YouTube. I love YouTube, and I consume more YouTube than any other media. I absolutely love the platform. So I always view it as like you got to create content, whatever it is that's that's going to make me click on that thumbnail rather than Rick
Hmm.
Beato's music review of Coldplay or Rick Shields golf video. This is some of the people I follow on YouTube, or
Yeah.
Rick Shields golf video where he's playing golf in Dubai at night, or wild camping. I've got a bit of a thing about wild camping
Yeah.
videos. Yeah, or people walking over Scottish mountains. So I think whatever it is, and I don't know, I'd have to think about what is that interesting content that I could create around WordPress that would make it interesting for people. So I don't know what that is off the cuff, but that would be the starting point, really.
The sort of angle you would approach.
Yeah, and there's loads. I love WordPress. There's loads of angles you could take, but it would have to be. And also, if you create that content, can you? I mean, brutally, can you monetize it? Will sponsors be interested in?
Yeah.
Yeah, what associated with that content?
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. Um, I think there are actually quite a few. Here's an interesting thing. I'm not going to do it, but here's an interesting that I thought of that is somewhat along those lines of
Yeah,
examples that you gave. Like a proper vlog type of
yeah,
talk about WordPress, like the stuff that you encounter,
yeah,
the stuff that we both are reasonably not young people anymore. So we've seen a few things, we've learned a few things
yeah.
that are very normal to us. And I'm not even talking just web development and all the terminology that goes into it, but the stuff that you encounter.
Do you know
Uh,
what I'd love to? I mean, that is a great point. And one idea I did have is that I would be funded by someone to just travel the world
and talk WordPress.
and talk WordPress
Yeah,
around all these stories, uncovering
that
all these stories.
that's essentially my idea. So
You know, I'm stealing that because that's anyone wants to sponsor that. Jamie at pootlepress.com. I'm
I'm
there.
I'm
I
going to
just
edit
want
this part out and say that I am intending to do this.
to. I love travel. I love WordPress and telling stories around WordPress. Of Matt, if you're listening,
Yeah.
you got my contact information.
Yeah.
But I think that's a great idea. Yeah, and telling the
Yeah, so
stories around
the
WordPress.
vlogging thing, if you look at
Yeah, yeah,
I do a lot of weird stuff with heavyweights.
I know.
One of the yeah, one of the people that has risen in the last 2 years And if you're not into bodybuilding and strength training and all of that, then you've never heard of him. But Sam Sulek is a wonderful
Yeah,
example.
yeah, I've followed him, so I know his stuff.
He's crazy because the only thing he does is vlog every single session and workout and talk about how that went. Just simple that, which
That's
is
what I love about YouTube, though, right? You have
wild
this,
to
you
have
have
a
this
million,
incredibly unedited,
yeah,
honest,
the
authentic
audience that he
content.
has. It's millions,
Yeah,
millions. It's incredible how many
because they
people are
they love
watching.
him and they love his story and his authentic. He's just
Exactly.
telling it, right? And
Yeah.
I think, yeah, so I think let's do that, Ramkus. Let's get a camper van, WordPress logo on the side, sponsored by,
I I I
and we tell the
could,
stories.
I actually could get excited about that, but we would have to sleep separately.
Yeah, I'm cool with that.
Yeah, I snore, so this is protected.
I'll be in a boutique hotel around the corner.
We have ourselves a deal, sir.
Cool, thank you for that.
Thank you so much.